From WRAL News, this is Focal Point.
We certainly can handle that. And
it seems like more and more people are talking on their cell phones while driving.
You could easier count the ones that aren't on the cell phone.
Talking on a cell phone is the most common driving distraction.
People behind him narrowly missed a multi-car pileup here. Research shows that if you use a cell phone while driving, you're at a 4 times higher risk of being involved in a crash.
It's the same whether handheld or hands-free.
It can be as dangerous as impaired driving or driving while impaired.
The state passed some restrictions on cell phone use while driving, but not an all-out ban.
It's understandable that people would be concerned about cell phone use in cars, but I don't think it's necessarily something we can legislate.
I noticed you were on your phone when you came by. Could that have contributed to it?
Law enforcement officers can already charge motorists for other violations caused by their distracted driving.
You were talking on the phone and that you were traveling about 45 into 60.
But some say a total cell phone ban is the only way to prevent accidents like this one in Greensboro that killed 2 children.
You know, them was my boys. They were my heart.
A tragic reminder that talking on a cell phone while driving can be a fatal distraction. Your cell phone is your instant connection to family, friends, coworkers. I often talk on mine while driving, and I'm sure many of you do too. But it's easy to let those conversations take your mind off the road. And it's important to understand how dangerous that can be, not just for you, but for others too. On May 9th, Janet Payne had just left Mother's Day dinner with her 3 sons. She was heading down I-40 in Greensboro when she hit a traffic jam and had to slow to a stop. An 18-wheel tractor-trailer truck coming up behind Payne slammed into the rear of her Toyota Camry.
The tractor trailer actually overrode and intruded into the passenger area of the vehicle in the back.
That's where 11-year-old Isaiah Reynolds and his 15-year-old brother Daryl Baucom were sitting. Both suffered massive head trauma.
When we got to the hospital, the chaplain came down and they took us up to the little room. And when they took us to the little room, I just knew it wasn't gonna be good.
Daryl had already died. Isaiah was not going to make it.
You know, them was my boys. They were my heart. And we loved each other.
Police say the truck driver, Jane Perkins of Arkansas, was distracted.
She stated she was on the cell phone. She looked up, all she saw were brake lights. That's when she locked up her brakes and skidded into the other vehicles.
After I heard that, I was just so frustrated because, you know, something like that don't have to happen. That's 2 lives that are gone because of selfishness and irresponsibility. And I think she should be held accountable.
Greensboro police charged Perkins with 2 counts of misdemeanor death by vehicle. Her penalty is up to 45 days of community service and a fine that's determined by the court.
She really don't have any consequences to face. We are left here in sorrow and in pain on a daily basis. And no phone call is that important. Not one.
Three days before Christmas, Erin Lindsay Calkins was headed to a dentist appointment with her 5-year-old son Nicholas and 4-month-old daughter Avon safely secured in her Toyota. She had to go through this railroad crossing near her home in Eflin.
As she made a right turn, the stop arms and everything were down, the lights were working. She traveled under the first stop arm, realized the mistake she made, came to a stop. At that point in time, the train made contact with her car.
The state troopers came and told me what had happened, that her and Nicholas were deceased, and I lost it.
Avon survived the crash. Witnesses said her mother was using her cell phone when she drove onto the tracks. A video on that Amtrak train confirmed that.
There's no indication that she was texting or anything like that, but that she did have her cell phone in her hand. So I'm sure that did contribute in some way.
The car was sitting, it had hit the pole and was sitting over on this side of the tracks.
Bess Bean was at the scene just seconds after the crash.
The baby was in the car, and then they found the little boy on the tracks on it this way.
Bean helped get the baby out of the car. She is still haunted by what she saw.
It's tragic. Nobody should have to lose their life over a cell phone. Nobody.
Next, what the research says about using a cell phone while driving.
I think the research is clear on cell phones and driving, that cell phones clearly increase the risk of a crash.
And I do a little research of my own.
Whoa.
Stop sign.
Someone just hit you. You're watching Focal Point from WRAL News.
There can be all sorts of distractions while driving, dealing with children, eating, tuning the radio. So what makes talking on a cell phone any more dangerous than those things? Researchers say the answer is between your ears.
Hey, Charles Murray, I had received an email.
Talk about distractions. Charles Murray has a truckload. Ham radio, satellite radio, scanners, a GPS unit. He says most of it is to keep him entertained while his landscape business keeps him on the road.
So I spend anywhere from 8 to 10 hours a day and more in this vehicle. Yeah, that'll work out great.
His most important distraction is his iPhone.
Inevitably, it'll save me a lot of lost time.
Murray can return emails promptly and send job quotes and invoices immediately, rather than waiting until the end of the day when he's back at his home office.
Check with you about the lawn from yesterday.
His mobile phone makes it all possible, but he understands the risks of distracted driving.
It only takes a fraction of a second for something to happen.
Research shows that driver distraction is responsible for almost 30% of crashes, and a driver on a cell phone is 4 times more likely to have a crash than one who isn't.
Sure. What's your number again, 618?
Murray says he always stops when he sends a text or email.
Anything that takes your eyes off the road is a bad thing.
But studies show that even having your eyes on the road while you're talking on a cell phone does not keep you from being distracted.
The driver who's dialing right there. We just have a case of a person looking but not seeing.
Arthur Goodwin is a senior researcher at the University of North Carolina Center for Highway Safety Research. Goodwin says your brain may be able to switch between tasks quickly, but can still only do one task at a time very well. When people are driving and talking on cell phones, their brains switch back and forth between those two tasks.
And it can result in things like what researchers call inattentional blindness, where you may be looking at the road, but you don't see things that are happening. So things may come up in the driving setting that if you weren't on a cell phone, you would notice, but because you're on the cell phone conversation, you just miss. This is the camera.
The UNC Highway Safety Research Center is discovering more evidence of that in an ongoing study using small video cameras called drive cams.
And it gets triggered by changes in G-forces like stops or turns.
In this study, the drive cams are mounted in the cars of young drivers. In this video clip, a young driver talking on a cell phone has his eyes on the road, but he's still late to notice a stopped school bus in front of him.
And then he had to slam on the brakes pretty hard. And you can see the people behind him just narrowly missed a multi-car pileup here. So this is an example of that inattentional blindness, where somebody can be looking at the road, but they just don't perceive things the same way when they're on a cell phone as they would when they're just driving normally.
Goodwin says the crash risk is the same whether a driver is on a handheld or hands-free phone.
That's because it's not the act of holding a phone to your ear that makes it dangerous. It's the cognitive distraction of having this conversation with someone on a cell phone.
Goodwin says conversations with passengers in the car are very different because passengers act as a second set of eyes and will usually stop talking and even warn the driver if there's danger ahead.
Research suggests that If you're having a conversation with a passenger, your risk of a crash is no different than if you were just driving alone. And in fact, may actually be lower in some cases.
That's good.
We decided to test some of the research ourselves in a parking lot at the state fairgrounds. State Highway Patrol Trooper Dwight Green helped us set up a test track there and evaluate the results.
All right, ready?
I guess so. Let's do it.
All righty.
I drove the track without any distractions the first time, then tried several times while talking on a cell phone to our producer, and finally while trying to send a text message. Staying focused on the road while texting was nearly impossible. I know that anyway, but it's not until you do something like that that you realize you are not paying attention to the road at all when you're trying to text. Hey. Yeah, you're right about that. While it wasn't nearly as distracting as texting, talking on my cell phone took my mind off what I was doing too. Once I was having the conversation, I can't really tell you what happened from point A to point B or whether I hit cones. I don't think I did. But I did. My eyes were on the road, but my mind didn't always stay there.
Whoa, stop sign.
Well, it doesn't matter. You've already stopped out in the intersection anyway.
I've just been slammed, probably, right?
Someone just hit you.
The first time I went through the stop sign, I don't even think I saw the stop sign. I didn't see the stop sign. It was the same inattentional blindness that researcher Arthur Goodwin talked about. Trooper Green calls it zoning.
Your priority in that instance was your conversation or getting in contact with him and maintaining whatever your conversation was. Secondary, which it should never be, was the driving process.
What were you really thinking when I went right past that stop sign?
She just ran the stop sign and she's gonna get us killed.
But I did well enough on the track to remain convinced that I can safely drive on the road while talking on my phone, if I'm careful.
But I can send you all that stuff by email. And
Charles Murray says he can too. He's never had an accident caused by being distracted. He says the real problem is drivers dealing with too many distractions.
There's a lot of people that are riding around. They might have 2 or 3 kids in the car. They're trying to manage their kids, talk on a cell phone at the same time.
Murray says his business depends on being able to use his cell phone while driving. He is opposed to a ban. Road warriors like him have the most to lose if one is ever passed. Next, is a cell phone ban on the way?
If we just enforce the laws that we have, I think we'd be way ahead of the game.
You're watching Focal Point from WRAL News.
The legislature has passed laws limiting cell phone use while driving in our state, but has not passed a total ban. Some lawmakers who supported one in the past now question how effective it would be.
I drive 300 miles a day probably.
Trooper Beckley Vaughn sees a lot more distracted drivers than he used to.
22 years ago, the basic distraction was highway distraction, going into a work zone or trying to read a sign.
Now people are programming GPSs, talking on their cell phones, and texting. Vaughn says texting is the most dangerous distraction. He knows firsthand.
I have been run off the road. I have been forced onto the shoulder, and I can stop these people. They're very, very nice, have no ill intention whatsoever, but have absolutely no idea as to what they just done.
It's all extremely dangerous.
Chapel Hill Town Council member Penny Rich would like to see a ban on cell phone use by drivers in her town.
It would make people think twice before they picked up the phone in Chapel Hill.
Distracted driving is a national issue.
The town council is studying a ban, but is waiting to see what state lawmakers do. So far, they've banned texting while driving, cell phone use by drivers under 18, and school bus drivers. But they stopped short of passing a total ban.
House Bill 231.
In 2009, bills were introduced in both the House and the Senate that would have banned cell phone use while driving, but both bills stalled in committee. Senator Ed Jones signed on as a co-sponsor of the bill, but now says he no longer supports a cell phone ban.
I think some things are just impossible to really enforce.
Jones, who was a highway patrol trooper for nearly 30 years, says existing laws are enough.
If you're weaving in the road out here and you have a cell phone to your ear, then I think that that's a reckless driving and we should charge that.
Jones thinks a bill banning cell phones may get too watered down to become an effective law. Representative Jennifer Weiss agrees. She thinks the only thing that could pass would be a ban on handheld phone use. That's what passed in 7 other states, Washington, D.C. and the Virgin Islands.
They haven't shown a real reduction in crashes in those states that have put in place the bans on handheld cell phones.
Weiss, who supported the other laws restricting cell phone use, says she can't support a total ban without more study and some assurance that it will be effective.
This is not an issue that's going away. It may be an issue that is addressed incrementally as it's already started to be.
John Hood, president of the John Locke Foundation, also questions the effectiveness of a ban.
There are so many potential distractions out there that focusing just on cell phone use, I think, doesn't really enhance highway safety very much. But what it will do is make North Carolina motorists very angry.
Hood says there should be more public education and awareness campaigns like the cell phone and insurance industries are already doing.
Do you remember when my character Ella says she gave up texting and driving? I wish more people would do the same.
Hood says strong marketing is more effective than weak law.
TWD, texting while driving, not cool.
You weaken the respect for the law when you pass laws that everybody recognizes are unlikely to be enforced.
Since the new texting ban took effect last December, the Highway Patrol has issued 600,000 traffic citations, but only 442 for texting.
It's difficult. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you about that. It's not like writing a speeding ticket where you can clearly see somebody speeding or somebody running a stop sign or a red light.
But Trooper Vaughn says he doesn't need to see someone texting to stop them for the dangerous driving it's causing. The same would be true for enforcing a ban on talking on a cell phone.
You know, you were talking on the phone and that you were traveling about 45 into 60. That's why I slowed back down.
He stopped this driver on a cell phone because she was backing up traffic driving too slow.
I noticed you were on your phone when you came by. Could that have contributed to it?
And he stopped this driver on a cell phone because she was speeding and continued to speed even when she saw Vaughn's patrol cruiser pull up beside her.
My biggest concern was I knew you were on the phone. Being distracted by talking on the phone or doing something other than focusing can be a concern. But
law enforcement officers can already charge drivers with violations that distracted driving can cause, such as improper lane changes, following too closely, and reckless driving. But a law banning cell phone use could have given police the aggravating factor to charge truck driver Jane Perkins with felonies instead of misdemeanors in the deaths of Darrell Baucom and Isaiah Reynolds, the same way a charge of DWI would have.
It is a major problem, but it's a problem that has to be dealt with, and if changing the law is the answer, then the law probably needs to be changed.
When you pick up a cell phone and talk on it while driving, you have made a choice to be reckless.
Next, a rallying cry for change.
This is what awaits if we don't do anything. This right here.
You're watching Focal Point from WRAL News.
It's clear that using a cell phone while driving can be a distraction, even a fatal one. Sometimes it takes that kind of tragedy to change opinions and policies. At the very least, it should make all of us think a little more about what's at risk while we're driving.
This is actually the railroad track, and this is the direction that we're going right now that she was traveling.
When Bess Bean approaches the railroad crossing where Erin Lindsay Calkins and her son Nicholas were killed, she has to stop, look, and listen.
I have to pause. I used to could zip through here and not even think twice about it, but zipping through there is just not an option for me anymore.
Neither is a cell phone conversation while driving.
My guess is immediately after all this happened, you probably didn't talk on the phone at all, right?
Oh no, it was buried.
She tells her 5 children not to talk on their cell phones while driving too.
I am more persistent with my children, with my family, with friends.
All because of what she saw on December 22nd.
This was a very tragic mistake. This is one that I hope many people can learn from, that it only takes an instant to be distracted, talking.
It only took an instant for Darrell Reynolds to lose his 2 sons.
the feeling of sorrow, the feeling of loss.
Now he's on a crusade to ban cell phone use by all drivers.
It would allow me a little comfort in knowing that they didn't die for nothing. Cut your cell phones off while driving.
Reynolds holds regular walks to raise awareness about the issue. He printed bumper stickers. He contacted state lawmakers. He started a petition drive, and he created a website where people can sign up, learn about the issue, and learn about his sons.
This is something we can change. I feel like that we have to, as parents, as adults, we have to change the things that we can, whether it be popular or not.
He carries these pictures from his son's funeral.
My boys should not be laying in those coffins. They should be here with us. This is what awaits if we don't do anything. This right here.